the benefit of being in radio. No one can tell when you're looking at your notes. They just think you know everything. Senator Fischer, the Federal Reserve, what do we do with it?
Well, the Federal Reserve has a lot of power, as all of you know. It sets the monetary policy for this country. We need to have more transparency. We need to audit the Federal Reserve. Between 2008 and 2010, the Federal Reserve gave loans of up to $5 billion to the, I'm looking at my notes, to the Arab Banking Corporation, which is a major shareholder of the Central Bank of Libya. We don't know what's happening with the Federal Reserve, and we need to, because it affects our everyday lives. So we need to have more transparency, we need to have accountability, and we need an audit.
Mr. Stenberg, do you think the Federal Reserve has been a contributing factor in our recession, and if so, how?
Well, it may have been in the sense that the low interest rate policies of the Federal Reserve helped create the housing bubble, the crash that led to our current economic situation. My thoughts on the Fed more generally: number one, we absolutely need an audit of the Fed. They were created by Congress. They do control our money supply, and the American people should know exactly what they're doing, and the Congress should know as well, so that we can take whatever corrective action might be needed. Number two, we need to amend the federal law regarding the Federal Reserve to make their sole responsibility that of controlling inflation. Right now, they're creating money to try and stimulate the economy, which has the potential for being dramatically inflationary and greatly damage the economy of our country. And number three, I would propose that Congress put a limit on the amount of new money the Fed can create, just like it puts a limit on the federal debt, so that in order to go beyond a certain point, you have to go to the Congress of the United States.
Mr. Flynn, do you think the Federal Reserve has been a contributing factor in our economic downturn, and if so, how?
Yes, as an investment advisor, I remember in the 90s when Alan Greenspan kept messing with the interest rates and trying to control the interest rates, and he was saying we weren't going to have a problem, and we were watching the tech bubble go up and up and up and up. And we all know what happened. The tech bubble burst. And so I think it's a huge issue of these central bankers trying to control our money situation, and they think they're trying to they're the strongest entity in the world right now, and the fact of it is they cannot be under that power. It's the duty of the people to be under that power, and Americans. And so as a U.S. Senator, I would be definitely after that Federal Reserve System. It is a huge issue. And I even hate to say junk it because it sounds so radical. But the fact of it is, it needs to be done, and they are a huge problem, and they're creating a very huge problem right now by printing money with no backing.
In the interest of time, and because we got started a little bit late, I think I want to give each candidate 2 minutes here to address this issue, and just kind of make it the same question for all three of you, because it's such an important issue in this country right now. I'll start with Senator Fischer. What do you do, if elected, about the price of gasoline in this country?
We have to have a long-term energy plan. I remember the early 70s, the price of gas and the shortage of gas, and we saw lines outside of gas stations. And we were going to do something about it, weren't we? Nothing happened. We need to have a long-term plan, and we need to quit reacting when something happens. The price of gas is going to change when we have an energy policy that is in place. When we have an energy policy that allows us to drill on federal lands, when we have an energy policy that's friendly to drilling on federal lands, we need to allow, as I said earlier, refineries to be more easily built in this country. We need to look at pipelines, and I'm the only person up here who dealt with the pipeline issue the last 3 years, and we just did this last week again in the legislature. We have to look at the needs of this country and meet those needs. That's how you get the price of gas down. It's not by saying we're going to We're going to use the reserve of gas that we have in this country. That's not going to change it that much. You know, we have to have that long-term plan, and we have to move ahead with it.
Mr. Stenberg, what do we do about the price of gas in this country? What do you do?
Well, to reduce the price of gas, you need to increase the supply, and it's especially helpful to increase our domestic supply so we don't have to rely on unfriendly, unstable foreign governments, and we can keep those hundreds of billions of dollars here in our country, improving our economy and creating jobs here at home. Number one, we need to open more federal lands to oil and gas, and especially oil exploration. That includes within the continental United States, in Anwar in Alaska, and off the coast of the United States. We need more leasing. We need less bureaucracy in the leasing process so that we can move forward. We can't have more drilling moratoriums like the Obama administration imposed sometime earlier. Another thing that, in my opinion, we need to do is once all government approvals have been obtained for drilling a particular project, private lawsuits should not be allowed to further impede that process. As I mentioned earlier, we're now self-sufficient in natural gas, and the process used is called fracking, and the environmentalists are now out to try and make that in a prohibited practice. Now, fracking is done usually in deep wells, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet deep, far, far below the level of drinking water supplies. And what we need to do is make sure that we don't let the environmental radicals continue to dictate energy policy in the United States and block what is now a well-used and very effective way of developing our natural gas resources and can be used to develop our petroleum resources. We need to stand up to the environmentalists, develop our domestic energy resources, and that'll bring down the cost of diesel fuel and gasoline, and it'll stimulate our economy, provide American jobs, and keep those hundreds of billions of petrodollars here at home instead of sending them to the Middle East. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, what do you do about the price of gas if elected?
Well, number one, we need to repeal the Commodities Futures Modernization Act, which happened in 1999, and really that made gas a speculative situation instead of a market-driven commodity. And in fact, it did that to all commodities. And so that's the number one thing, because we don't have an energy shortage, we have a speculation problem is what we really got. Number two, I'm for getting rid of the Department of Energy. And as far as the nuclear part, that can go to the Department of Defense. Because really, the Department of Energy has only been around since 1977, and we haven't. And their number one goal was to help us become energy independent. They have flunked, they have failed, they're out. And so the thing is, and then we go after the regulatory agencies, because the fact of it is this, that these regulatory agencies are really they're creating barriers that are not too hurtable. It's hard to jump over them anymore. And so that's what I'm saying. But, you know, I'm saying this is about leadership. And when you're electing a U.S. Senator this time, you have to ask yourself, who's the best leader? Because I believe that energy is one of the most important, it's power, is what it is. And so, and the only way we're going to defeat the environmentalists, the leftists, is to get leadership and to help lead the cause of capitalism in America and remind Americans that we are Americans and we're independent people. And so we got to get back to the independence. And so it is about leadership, but those would be the number one and two things.
Okay, Senator, because of the open-ended nature of the question and the conversation, we start with you again on a new subject, but because of your actions this week in unveiling your immigration policy, this isn't catching you off guard. We've got cities like Fremont, states like Arizona, who try to come up with their own immigration policies and have been blocked by the federal government and other organizations. Do cities and states across the country, should they have the leeway to form their own immigration policies?
It's telling me I have less time now. Okay. You know, the actions that we saw in the Nebraska legislature this week with regards to the prenatal bill brought the immigration issue to the forefront again here in the state of Nebraska. The federal government's not doing their constitutional duty. They have a duty to secure our borders. They have a duty to protect us and protect this country. We don't know who's coming in, nor do we know what they're bringing. The states, I believe, need more flexibility from the federal government in dealing with this. We need help in processing and detaining illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, when they come to this country. That's how the federal government can help the states. I'm definitely a person who believes in states' rights, but immigration is a duty of this country. And I believe that the better route would be for the federal government to step up, do their constitutional duty, but offer states the tools that we need so that we can control the situation that we have here in Nebraska.
Mr. Stenberg, are you in favor of cities and states going off on their own and forming their own immigration policies?
Well, I'm in favor of state and local governments having the authority to effectively deal with the problems created by illegal immigrants in their communities. I think it's just outrageous that the federal government would sue the state of Arizona for simply trying to adopt policies that would deal with the illegal immigrants that the federal government has allowed in this country by failing to secure our borders. From a bigger picture, and I mentioned it earlier, we need to very aggressively move to secure our borders. Not only are there terrorist threats, we have illegal drugs and violence pouring across, particularly our southern borders, as well as illegal immigrants. And I support the construction of a fence across the entire southern border, a double-wall fence with enough border agents to make sure that it is effective, and I believe that it would be. Once we've secured the borders, I am opposed to amnesty for illegal immigrants, and I'm also opposed to taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal immigrants. The way to discourage illegal immigration is, number one, make sure that employers are not employing illegal immigrants. You can use the E-Verify system for that. And number two, not provide welfare benefits to people here illegally. It is one of those two things, jobs more than the welfare benefits, but some of both, that attract illegal immigrants. If you eliminate those incentives and have a secure border, we'll be able to effectively deal with immigration.
Mr. Flynn, we have, according to several estimates, tens of millions of illegal immigrants already in this country, millions more who would love to be in this country. What do we do with these people?
Well, number one, if they're illegal, in a sense, I'm an American and I want to protect Americans, you know, and so that's my number one duty, is to worry about the Americans. And so I think we need to repatriate them, and we need to send them back to the U.S. visit program and sign up, and if they have a criminal record, they definitely can't come back. But my immigration policy is really saying this. Number one, we have to secure the border and militarize it. And number two, and because there is a huge leak. But number two is, we hear the problem. It's like, we're just doing the jobs Americans don't want to do. So I'm saying we put a lifetime maximum cap on unemployment benefits of 6 months. If they have a problem with it after that, if Americans don't want to work, I'm not going to feed them. You know, if you don't work, you don't eat in America. And so the same thing with welfare. We created a whole culture of citizens. And so really, the illegal immigrants have to go back, you know, and we have to worry about Americans, not illegal immigrants. But I don't have a lot of mercy for them, really, in all sincerity, because they aren't always wanting to be Americans. They're using our system.
Senator?